Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with me today as we bring you up to speed with our latest operation, Cyber Guardian. Do you know the most important thing we have in our life are our children and our grandchildren? There's no one that should have a better life or a more protected life or a safer life than young children. But if it weren't for the great detectives that work for me and other law enforcement agencies throughout this country, there would be many, many, many more victims of sexual battery by these incredible deviants. So today we're going to highlight a few of the people that we arrested in our latest operation. And I want to start with one of those that I think are the most appalling to me. This is Polio Rodriguez. He thought he was traveling to meet a 14-year-old child in order to engage her in sexual conduct. He said, that it was very special for him to spend time with a young lady. One of his usernames was Daddy's Do It Better, and he was HIV positive. Did you hear me? He was HIV positive. He thought he was coming to a house to engage a child in sexual conduct while HIV positive. And the only reason we learned about this was through our investigation. If that doesn't shock the conscience of the community, then nothing will. And if we didn't arrest anyone else during this entire operation other than Polio, it would have been worth all of our time and effort. But he wasn't the only one. There are a lot of others. How about the fella that was here on business from Houston, Texas? Govind Gambiar. He's 30. He's a member of the Texas National Guard. He's a former U.S. Army member. Was an E4. He spent 6 years in the U.S. Army. Get this. He's an intelligence specialist with a top secret clearance with the Department of Defense. A top secret clearance with the Department of Defense. He thought he was traveling to the undercover location to meet a child, only 15 years of age. I wonder what you have to do to maintain a top secret clearance for the Department of Defense. Just thinking maybe he doesn't qualify any longer. Maybe he shouldn't have received it to begin with if they'd done the appropriate background. How about Daniel Malwa? He's 51 years of age. He thought he was traveling to have sex with a 14-year-old child. All right, now if the first two haven't shocked you enough, think about this. He was not only vacationing here, but he brought his twins. He has a twin boy and girl who are 14. And he brought them here as a birthday present because they turned 15 last Sunday. So he came to the Central Florida area, took the kids to all the different amusement parks, and then on Friday night, after having a rough week of being with his 14-year-old girl and boy, he decided, what the heck, I'll go to a dating site and see if I can find me a 14-year-old child to have sex with. And that's what he thought he was doing, except that it was our undercover detectives instead. How about Dylan Gilbreth? He was here from Alabama. His victim was 12 years old if she had not have been an undercover detective. He said right away, hey, you want to make $50? But he's a nice kind of guy, as he tries to have sex with what he thinks is a 12-year-old child. He went way out of the way. He brought her a strawberry milkshake and some gummy bears. That's not all. He just left court in Orange County that day, entering a diversion plea for soliciting an adult prostitute as well. So he goes to court for soliciting a prostitute, enters a diversion program in Orange County, and immediately starts chatting with what he thinks is our victim. He was really impressed by the criminal justice system, wasn't he? How about Charles Weeks, who thought he was traveling to meet a 14-year-old child? He's a student athlete on the bowling team at Weber. He lives in Valdosta, Georgia. Don't you know that his mom and dad are proud that they sent him down here to college and he's trying to solicit children for sex? Or how about Tyrell Gordon? He's a UCF student in biomedicine. He traveled to meet a child, only 14, and to do kind of kinky kind of sex, not normal stuff. Is there a normal stuff with a 14-year-old? We don't think so. But Tyrell, who is a biomedical student, was going to sexually batter a child. Well, how about William Rodriguez Cruz? He is a security guard. He works for United Allied Security. He has a Class D security license, and by the way, he thought he was traveling to meet a child, 14 years of age. He had a previous grand theft charge, and he still had a Class D security license. Did you hear me? You too could use United Allied Security, and they could have a security guard with a previous grand theft charge, and he's active with trying to have sex with children. Wore his uniform. I guess he wanted to advertise for him along the way. Security guard uniform, going to show up to have sex with a child, show a position of authority. I'm not impressed, and I hope the courts aren't either. How about Sean Jaggernoth? He said he was attending Valencia Community College in criminal justice. When we tried to read him his constitutional rights off the Miranda card, he said, "Don't bother, I know him." He thought he was coming to have sex with a 14-year-old in the criminal justice program. Don't bother, Sean. We don't want you in the criminal justice system. How about Kevin Van Orman, who's 35? Of course, there's always got to be a Disney employee, and here he is. He's a bus driver for Disney. He told what he thought was this young 15-year-old who he's come to engage in sex that he was just a big teddy bear. Well, he's a big arrested bear, is what he is. He left his pregnant wife at home and their 2 young children. Did you hear me? He left his pregnant wife at home and 2 young children to come here and be arrested. I don't think Disney's happy with him today. How about Arturo Acurero? He's 30. Thought he was going to travel to have sex with a 14-year-old child. He left his children, who were 10 and 12, at home with his wife while he traveled to have sex with a 14-year-old child. He works for UPS in customer service. Well, UPS might be interested in knowing what they have as customer service agents. How about Aureliano Nunez? He's an illegal immigrant. Shouldn't be in the United States. Not only shouldn't he be in the United States, but while he's here illegally, he thought he'd commit a second-degree felony by traveling to meet a 14-year-old child for sex. We have notified ICE. They're very interested in him once he finishes his criminal prosecution with us. Here's Kevin Bagwell. He's from the Hunter Creek area in Orlando. He thought that his victim was 14. He would not travel. But what he did was, over two-way communications, he transmitted harmful materials, yes, nasty pictures, to what he thought was a 14-year-old child. He is at large. We need to arrest him. If you know where he is in the Orlando area, give us a call. We understand he works for U-Haul. I didn't do that on purpose, but it worked. So, he works for U-Haul, and we plan to U-Haul him to the county jail just as soon as we find him. Now, in addition to that, when you see all of these folks that we've arrested, they all actively tried to engage children, babies, in sexual conduct. Most of them traveled. And the only reason that they weren't able to attack a child is because we were working undercover pretending to be children. But along the way, I want to talk about our child pornography arrest. Because you see, the overwhelming majority of the people, according to the research that's been presented to me, that deal in child pornography would, if they had the opportunity, engage children in sexual conduct, deviant conduct. So here's Jose Sandoval. He's 34. We arrested him 2 weeks ago and charged him with 100 counts of child porn. 100 counts. Listen to me, folks. In 2006, he was charged with sexual assault on an 11-year-old child. That's a capital felony. He was sent to prison for only 4 years, and then he was released in 2010. And then he committed a burglary, and he was sent back to prison, and he was released again. And he's on probation, and his complete date for probation was supposed to be May 17th. Now think about that. How in the world was he able to plead down a sexual assault on a child under 12, which is a capital offense, to 4 years? But did he appreciate the break of a life? Absolutely not. And 2 weeks ago we arrested him for 100 counts of child porn. This is a bad man that needs to be locked up for the rest of his life. Because if he's not, he's going to deal with in child porn. And he certainly has demonstrated a proclivity to have sex with babies. And then there's Anthony Schulte. We talked about Anthony back in September when we arrested him for 15 counts of child porn. We just recently added another 185 counts of child porn for a total of 200 counts. Some of the victims in this child porn were as young as 18 months old. That should make you sick. It makes me sick. It makes me sick that he was out walking the streets, but we're glad that he's charged up and not now. Okay, so there's always someone out there that says, well, Sheriff, you know, you arrested all these people and there were no real victims. It was undercover people pretending. Why do you do that? And then there's some that say, well, Sheriff, you know, most of these people are not even from Polk County. Well, I want to suggest to you, does it make any difference to the people in this county or this state or this nation where these sex predators are from or where they're arrested? Do you know I care as much about the children in Alabama and Chicago and California and New York as I do here. I don't want any child ever to be sexually battered. So we will chase these folks to the ends of the earth to keep children safe from them. But when someone doesn't call us and tell us when they see something or hear something, when we're unable to scoop them up, then we get what we released last week. And this is Jonathan Fundora. We talked about him last week. That's the end game that occurs if we don't do this. So what did he do? For 6 weeks, he groomed a 10-year-old child. Now understand that we arrested him in March. This child had just turned 10 years of age. He groomed this child. He made arrangements to meet her. So he came all the way up from Miami, rented a Motel 6, set up the room with games. That's right, with games that children should like. Then he picked her up at the end of the street. She had left a note on her bed that she was going to be with a friend, with a female friend, and she'd be back in 2 or 3 days. Well, her guardian came home sometime later and saw this note and immediately called the sheriff's office. From the time the sheriff's office arrived and determined that we had an endangered missing child and started looking for this child because no one knew where she was, in only 35 minutes from our arrival, which is a miraculous time, we found her. Our patrol deputies found the suspect's vehicle parked at the Motel 6, according to some quick work we did on the internet, and we busted into the door only to find that he'd already sexually battered this 10-year-old child. And he confessed. He told us, well, I thought she was 14 or 15, like that makes some difference. Oh, by the way, did I add that his password was the victim's date of birth, so he certainly knew that she was 10 years old. And he's dressed up in this silly-looking costume here. He was a manager of a Burger King in Miami. We're going to make sure that the child victim gets the help she deserves, but I truly think our deputies saved this child's life from this guy here, because many times we know when they finish playing with these children, then heck, they kill them so that they can't be witnesses against them later. So at the end of the day, he never did understand the complexity of his case, because he asked the detectives, after you finish taking me to jail, will you give me a ride back to my car? Well, our goal is that he doesn't need a driver's license or a car or a Burger King hamburger, because he can't have it his way. He's going to have it our way, and that's in prison forevermore. So that is the end game that occurred, quite frankly, while we were doing this undercover operation and prepping for it. That's what happens if we don't do this. So for those very few naysayers, and I might add, there's very few that doesn't get it. If we don't do this, we get people like that victimizing 10-year-old children. I can't begin to tell you once again how proud I am of the men and women of the Sheriff's Office. They're simply the very best in the business that go out and seek out these folks, because this takes a lot of work. You see, this guy groomed the 10-year-old child for 6 weeks before he showed up. We have been chatting with some of these folks for an extended period of time before they showed up. So make no mistake about it. Right now, this second in time, there are sexual deviants and predators like these out looking for children online and trying to groom them for that end game, where we were able to arrest him before he got around to killing the child. But certainly with our remarkable, unbelievably quick response from knowing nothing to finding him in 35 minutes, that wasn't quick enough. This kind of operation is the only thing that saves the 10-year-old victims from being at the hands of that kind of person. So with that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Sheriff, sometimes you have a lot more people than this. 15, 16 is still a lot, but do you feel like the message is getting through somewhat? Don't try to come to Polk County?
When we started these operations back many years ago, we were getting 30, 40 at a time. So the numbers are diminishing. Two things are occurring, or three things, I think. There are not a lot of people that's deviant like this in the world. So there is a bottom to that well, number one. Number two, that yes, we invite the news media in to see who these deviants are so that we can warn the community and so that we can tell parents over and over and over, because that's what you have to do. You must monitor any electronic devices that your children have that connect to the outside world. You must, because these guys are looking for your babies to sexually batter them. And certainly, it's no secret to people around here that we are going to proactively go after you and continue to go after you and continue to have these operations. I really want everyone to understand, and I appreciate the news media being here, because we've got to never stop getting this message out, because most parents live in absolute total denial. This doesn't really happen. It can't happen in my world. It's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to my child. Well, I want you to know, if your child's online with a device, somebody's trying to find your child to groom them. Oh, my child would never do that. Well, no, most children wouldn't. But some of these people have charisma and personality and strawberry milkshakes and gummies and new dresses and new shoes, and they look for children that don't have much or may not have much, or whose mom and dad are overly strict, and they're going to be their new best friend. So at the end of the day, there aren't as many as there used to be. I hope that's a good sign, that we have a whole lot of them in prison. We've scared a whole lot of them from ever doing this. But if police chiefs and sheriffs across this nation aren't doing what we're doing in Florida, and the Florida Sheriff's Association has made this a priority, and many agencies through ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force, have made this a priority, but make no mistake about it. If you say, oh, I've not seen this in my neighborhood, in my community, in my city, in my town, we must not have any. No. If you haven't seen what we're doing in your city or your town, your police agency's not out investigating appropriately, because they're in every city and every town in this nation.
Would you say your detectives, were they in chat rooms, or?
These detectives were online, and they were in chat rooms where you would find children. And that's what's frightening about this. These folks aren't deep undercover someplace. They are in chat rooms, they're in game rooms, children play games. Some of the communications that we saw, I believe, with Jonathan Fendora, was he brought PlayStation and games. He brought his PlayStation and set up the games here to play with the children, to play this 10-year-old child, this victim. So where do you find these deviants? You find them where children are playing games online, because that's where they're looking for them. And they're looking for children in need of attention. They're looking for children that don't have attention. They're looking for children that are overly supervised or not supervised. And they're going to be their new best friend. I mean, heck, a guy will even come down here on vacation with his 14-year-old twin boy and girl. And while here on vacation, is going to try to engage another 14-year-old child that he's found online in sex? Are you kidding? What kind of screwed up individual is that? But they're out there. and you're looking for your children every day. I don't like these people. I want them all to go to prison for a long time. Any other questions?
If you don't mind, or asking me, you can talk a little bit about the Justin. He got arrested. It's the case from yesterday. He got 5 girls. Can you say who he was, how he had access to these girls?
I believe his name was Justin Cruey. Justin Cruey was arrested, totally separate from this, for sexually battering 5 children between the ages of 16 and 18. 2 12-year-olds, 2 13-year-olds, and a 15-year-old. In addition to that, we can see where Justin Cruey himself, at the age of 12, was arrested by the Bartow Police Department for 3 counts of lewd assault. At only 18 years of age now, he's a deviant. We received information that he would hang out after school at Standby Middle School. We understand that he did a little of everything. He would sneak into the windows of children after their parents would go to sleep. He would meet children at a public park. He would threaten them with violence. On one occasion, he had a knife. And so he did everything from lewd assault to sexual battery with force. He's a very dangerous, dangerous man. And he was totally separate from these operations. We've just been inundated with deviants we've needed to arrest in the last couple of weeks. But we like to do that. And if you know of any other deviants we haven't gotten to yet, give us a call or call Crime Stoppers and say, hey, here's one that the most awesome detectives haven't gotten to yet. We'll set them up an appointment at the county jail.
Do you think Cruey may have any other victims?
We, as we said yesterday, we certainly did that press release in hopes that if there are other victims, we'd learn about them. Do I suspect that? Yes. If he has no other victims, it's only because other girls have fought him off, have refused to be around him. But I can tell you at least one of the victims we discovered was previously had been a victim from a previous event where she was embarrassed and just didn't want to tell anyone. And we discovered her through the investigation. So yes, his conduct has not changed. We saw it when he was 12 years old. We saw it when he was 16 years old. And now we've arrested him at 18 years of age. So yes, I greatly submit to you that if he's had the access to other girls, he has tried to sexually batter them if he hasn't.
Sheriff, do we know why he was targeting Standby? Is there a reason for that?
I don't have that information. He probably lived in the area. But I'm told he would hang out after school when the kids were getting out of school. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a great day.